You're listening to the Holistic Nootropics Podcast, your home for holistic, evidence-based cognitive enhancement strategies. And now your host, Eric Levi.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Holistic Nootropics Podcast, where we discuss using nootropics, biohacking, and nutrition to help you boost your cognition. My name is Eric. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner. And today on the podcast, I have Robbie Besner. Robbie is a PSc.D and the Chief Science Officer and co-founder of Therasage, a premier infrared healing products company recognized as the leader in integrated infrared technology. Robbie is a professor for the World Federation of Chinese Medicine Societies. He's an annual contributor at the World Committee on Infrared, a member of the Education Committee of the prestigious Hippocrates Health Institute, a presenter at many medical, integrative, and anti-aging health conferences, as well as an invited contributor on many podcasts, including this one, online summits, on-air radio, and TV health shows around the world. He's a best-selling author and considered a leading scientist in the field of integrated infrared technology. Robbie, welcome to the Holistic Nootropics Podcast.
Wow, Eric, that's quite a build-up. I'm sitting here humbly listening to you talk, and I'm a little embarrassed when people talk about me while I'm in the room, you know?
I know.
So thank you for having me today and giving me an opportunity to share a lot of our research and some of the things that we do that really make a difference in people's health.
Absolutely. We're going to jump into just so much interesting stuff because, as you can tell from your bio, I mean, you have such a wide range and wide breadth of knowledge on so many cool topics that I love to talk about on this podcast. Before we start the podcast, I just want to just a quick shout out. Robbie, our guest today, is actually going to be a speaker at the Biohacking Congress in Miami, October 16th and 17th. It's going to be an amazing biohacking conference filled with so many amazing speakers in the biohacking and health and wellness space. I highly recommend checking it out. In fact, the Biohacking Congress has teamed up with the Holistic Nootropics Podcast and has given me 50 free online virtual tickets to give to you, the listener. So I'm giving those out now up until the conference. So if you would like one of those free tickets, all you got to do is go on over to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review of the podcast, screenshot it, send it over to me over at info@holisticnootropics.com. Once I see that review, I will shoot you over a free pass to the conference. Again, so many amazing speakers. If you love biohacking, if you love just optimizing your health for high performance, then this is something you don't want to miss. And again, let me bring in one of the speakers who's going to be there, Rob Besner. Rob, the first thing I want to start this podcast off today with is, how did you get into this world of holistic health and wellness? What brought you in to this goofy world of gadgets and gizmos and science? What was your start and what are you doing with it?
Well, great question. And I really, when you ask it like that, I almost want to say that I'm a little older guy and I've been practicing holistic approaches to my own life, for most of my life. Pretty much ate pretty well. I was very active. I was outdoors. I communed with nature as often as I could. So many of the things that, seem so innovative now were things that I've been kind of doing all along growing up. I grew up on Long Island on the South Shore, and just an active, regular middle-class guy growing up, and it was wonderful. My background, like undergrad, postgrad work, was multifaceted: engineering, business, various different health sciences, psychology was one of them, and biology and physiology. And from that, I did postgrad work in an allopathic track at Case Western Reserve, and then took leave from that to pursue other businesses and interests. Started my family, and about 13 to 15 years in, my oldest child, my daughter, contracted Lyme disease. And when she got sick, and now we're going back 22 some odd years. So when she got sick, I kind of recruited all my health science backgrounds and started to think through the ways that she was expressing her Lyme disease. and started creating and making devices. Well, actually, I just studied her symptoms, and the thing that really popped out was her high level of toxicity as I looked at it. And she suffered from body pain and cognitive challenges and things like that, which is really kind of the lens that you see the world through. So there's a lot of things that we can share on those topics together and with the viewers today. But when I looked at her overall and where I thought I could have the most impact, I centered on toxicity. And when I studied that, I just discovered what most people know about invasive formats of chelation and ways to get toxins out, and then using pharmaceuticals or even plant-based chemicals to purge toxins on a cell level. And then I discovered that there's actually wavelengths of sun rays, which is the full spectrum of infrared, that will actually mobilize all the toxins in your body. So I thought that was just amazing. But at that time, again, 25 years ago, infrared in the health science area was mostly used by sports medicine doctors to expedite healing from players that were injured on the field, along with other things. And so I said, okay, lowers body pain. That was something that fit my bill. And mobilizing toxins was certainly something, because as I discovered in my research, and I'm still deep into it, that toxicity and inflammation, they travel sort of on the same highway together. And so as I saw part of her, the way she was expressing herself was high levels of inflammation, which could have been triggered by the toxicity levels. Clearly it was something that brought my attention. And I saw that it was only the medical community that was basically using infrared from that perspective. I went and started developing technology for our own personal use. And we were fortunate because we aligned ourselves with some of the greatest Lyme literate doctors of the time. And even now they're considered some of the greatest. So they said, hey, you're onto something. It's really helping Julia. And we'd like to see if you could develop some of these techniques and these devices for us, for our practices, for our Lyme patients. And that was really the genesis of Therasage, our company. Humbly said, we're probably one of the leaders in energy medicine, and as a company, harnessing infrared, full spectrum infrared frequencies and putting them into our two main categories of devices, medical devices. And then we've created a full array of synergistic or stacks that you work with infrared to boost and elevate primal healing. And so that's kind of the backdrop.
And when you say stacks, are you talking about like vitamins, nutrients, or are you talking about like lifestyle things like, exercise and diet? Maybe explain that a little bit more.
Well, we actually make devices. And so my concept started probably like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And the idea in my mind was that if the infrared sauna was the hub of the wagon wheel, and the spokes of the wagon wheel were different kinds of interventions or modalities like aromatherapy or guided meditation or oxygen or ozone therapy, or other kinds of ways that I can introduce those modalities into that sauna session because of the synergies and the way it recruits various different kinds of physiological shifts in the body. I thought that was just a very novel idea. And so, it's truly 2 and 2 makes 6, 8, 10. It's not the independents are strong enough by themselves to stand on their own feet. But when you put them together, and also what I noticed, Eric, is that the way that you stack things, the order that you do things, and the way you dose what you do in that order makes all the difference between just getting a moderate result or getting like a wow, optimal, knock the leather off the ball approach, result.
I believe it. I've been very into this concept of not just stacking things, but like timing and dose and then order of stuff, especially when it comes to detox, because I see so many people like, hey, I'm doing a juice cleanse. Hey, I'm doing this, this pre-made detox from some company I found on Amazon. And, people don't understand that when you detox, okay, maybe the thing you're doing might jar something loose in your body. But then there's this whole other part of now it's circulating in your body. And if you don't get it out, like you have to have a clear path for it to get out. And as we both probably know, the majority of people, at least on the Western diet, have some, real blockage issues as far as that, stage 3 detoxification, actually getting stuff out of the body. Like, hey, not to be so graphic, but if you're not pooping at least once a day, that stuff has to go somewhere. So I totally agree with you on like the importance of stacking things in the order and the timing. That's so important.
Right. And as a company, we think it's not just enough to make a great device, but it's how you use the device to actually get the result you're looking for. And so we spend an enormous amount of money and time in research. We probably 80% of our consciousness is about raising awareness and education on this topic. And we deliver devices and we deliver the integrated health science on how to use the device to get the best result. And that could go with one-on-one trainings with practitioners. Most of our power base, our network, are practitioners that have been following us for the last 22 years. And it's gotten to be quite a network. And then, of course, our model was I teach the practitioner and educate and elevate them. And then they're touching so many lives through their flow of their practice that vicariously through them, we get to touch all those lives. And our goal would be to kind of just show the general public that it doesn't have to be expensive to take care of yourself, that you just have to kind of dial it back a little bit and that's the way I do, when I look at things, I kind of look at it really at a primal level. I have a communication with nature and I study that, and I study ancient cultures and the health aspects of those cultures, what that did to maintain the integrity of the civilization of the time. And then we try to integrate all those natural events into our format and our platform. And it's really quite marvelous because, for more than 15 of the last 22 years, I've spent working with the infectious disease area. We're very passionate about Lyme and autism and cancer and really any of the chronic challenges out there. But the latest one that I'm actually completely jazzed up about is this optimal health category, the biohackers, these guys that are feeling good, whatever the age is, and they just want to stay feeling good and just keep raising the bar. It's I don't want to be trite about this. If it's pretty easy for me to move the needle on someone that has chronic challenges. They're so sick of being sick, and the stuff that we do has such a visceral and great impact on their health that, it's just a joy for all of us here to be able to help people get on the road to recovery. But the real challenge is when you're feeling great, someone like you that's fit, that's really conscious, that's been focusing on this, it's a little harder for me to move your needle, honestly. And so I love that challenge. I love the energy and the eagerness that these biohackers out there have towards just getting the best of whatever they can and getting the most out of their lives. And I think that really is what we're all here for.
The biohacking community, it definitely pushes the needle on, innovation, on, experimenting with these different ideas, and so much of it is actually like traditional wisdom. So many of these different herbs are now coming back in vogue, right? Like something like Ayurvedic herbs, Bacopa monnieri, right? I was just doing some research on astragalus, and astragalus, houses the compound TA65, which is, all the biohackers going crazy. How do I get my hands on this telomerase, thing and make my telomeres longer? But I find in the biohacking community, because you do have so many great representatives of it, people like yourself, people, like the Ben Greenfields of the world, for instance, that are, they look great, they're doing all this stuff. And so many people want that stuff. But for so many people, this aging population that have been chronically ill for so long, getting them just to master the fundamentals, which is, what I'm trying to do with this whole channel, which is like, yeah, hey, telomerase, that's great. All these compounds that you take are great. Like I know people that are taking hundreds of dollars of supplements every week, because they're like, if I just take 10 things in the morning and 10 things in the afternoon, 10 things at night, like that's going to do it. But yet they have not mastered their own metabolism. They still wake up with blood sugar issues. They still, they have sleep issues. They're dealing with ulcerative colitis or something like this. And I don't think people understand that. It's like, even as advanced as the space is, you just have to make it simple for yourself. And then when you master that foundation, it's like, you're right. You can go to the moon with some of this stuff and you could feel great. You could look great. You could really, I don't know if you'll extend your lifespan, but I just read today this saying, it was like, it's not about extending years to life. It's about adding life to years. And I think that's a part that a lot of people are missing right now.
Couldn't agree with you more. As troubled as I am and concerned about our current health, starts with the environment, but certainly this whole pandemic and how it's affected us in so many ways. Some of the silver linings, I'm kind of a silver lining guy, could be that it maybe was that ultimate speed bump in the road that brought everybody to a quick halt. Gave us all an opportunity to look around, kind of cull our lifestyles and peel away all those toxic relationships and the things that we were doing that we just realized that we were doing. And after a while, you just accept it as part of your personality and not even sometimes remembering how you got started. And this was a real wake-up call for many of my colleagues to give us an opportunity to dial in our consciousness, get rid of a lot of the driftwood and a lot of the extra baggage, and mostly in a different way, allow us to think about what kinds of solutions. When you're isolated, you have to kind of really get back to not the sense of community that we had before, but what do I do to survive through the day to day? Me personally, then my family unit, then my extended family, and so forth. And then sense of community and bringing in religion and all the things that are important to you. And so it really gave me, an opportunity to take a look at all that. And then now saying to myself and wondering while I'm in isolation, when I come out the other end of the tunnel, what do I want my world to look like? And that's where we're all defining all that now. And I think it's really a brilliant time. One of the things that we've seen in our company is that people are really focusing on home solutions, things they can do for themselves to keep them optimally healthy, to keep them out of hospital, to keep their immune system strong so that they can fight off many of the things that are going on in our environment without the use of medications or finding themselves behind the eight ball in a sense. So, I think you and I are very alike and fortunate to be educators in this time at a point where people are very open to looking at, alternative ways to maintain their health. And I'm really glad to be in the position I'm in now. I mean, it's sort of like the overnight success that took 22 years or 25 years. It's the right time and place for everything that we've done as a company, both philanthropically and also in the various different devices we've made and the special protocols that go with the devices. I'm feeling really grateful that I have the opportunity to share that with people and keep them healthy and strong.
Yeah. And your company, I mean, I'm so impressed with how many, your product line, like you have so many different modalities that you promote to essentially just give life back to the body. There's some companies, they just, like you do red light stuff, and there's some companies they focus just on red light. I think that's fine. But you have red light panels, you have these, negative ion mats, you got you have a water filter, there's so many cool things that can be helpful to people. And hey, it's not one size fits all, but find the thing that works for you. Maybe somebody doesn't like to stand in front of a red light panel. Maybe they want to lay on a mat to get the energy moving, right? Maybe they don't want to even go that far. Maybe they just want the water filter. Maybe they want like an air purifier, whatever it is. You can tell that what you're really trying to do is you're really trying to take this concept of energy medicine, which I know has the woo-woo connotation to it, but you're actually delivering energy. And we can go into some of the science here on some of these things that you have, like the infrared, for instance. I love talking about infrared. But at the end of the day, we know it stimulates ATP production. We know it gets blood moving. We know it gets your body reacting in a positive way, almost like, oh my God, where has this light spectrum been? Where is this biomodulation? Where has this been? Because all of these things are now happening in my body, and you don't see it at first. You don't get a buzz off of red light. You don't walk out of red light like, man, I'm so red lighted up right now. I'm so photo biomodulated. But you over time, when you implement it as a practice, you start feeling good. You're like, oh my God, I'm getting, an hour of deep sleep when I couldn't crack 10 minutes for so many years. Right. So maybe we could talk a little bit about like some of the science behind these things, these products that you have and that are working so well for customers.
Okay. Well, let's start, or at least focus on the infrared sauna, because that seems to be, it hits so many different physiological bases that I think that our viewers will, or your viewers will have a great benefit in that part of our discussion. So infrared has 3 wavelengths: the near, the mid, the far. Red light therapy and some of the others, violet and blue and green lights, certain of those lights which are visible to the eye. Infrared frequencies are invisible to the naked eye. They have benefits, and they're very, very close in the way that they measure light frequencies. It's a nomenclature that's called a nanometer. And so the red light is very, very close to the spectrum that begins with infrared. They're so close that we actually incorporate red light and the near frequencies into one of our most popular portable saunas, the Thera 360 Plus. And so, dialing it back to what you said, as a company, we started off, and our power base is clearly about understanding sun energy and how to harness it, how to deliver it to the body with the highest concentration of absorption, which is defined by a term that's called emissivity. And so the higher the emissivity, the higher absorption on a cell level that these light frequencies can get into. And that's where all the magic is. As you probably know from your own experience, that we basically get sick when the cell starts to break down, and we heal the same way. And so cell function is really the eye on the prize, so to speak. And even though we're energy medicine specialists and we've focused on infrared sauna as one of our formats, that's where all the other stacks that we talk about become important, because you really can't effectuate a full body flush without being properly hydrated. So if you don't have a good water source, you could be in my sauna, but if you're dehydrated, you're not going to get the best benefit of a detox. And the other thing that we really like, so again, the primal things: sunlight, water, air, and food, or formats of nutrition, as an intake. These are the core elements for primal healing. And so we've harnessed sunlight, and the spectrum of infrared is considered the most beneficial for physiological shifting and healing. The UV spectrum, which comes before the infrared spectrum, is the nutritional wavelengths, because they will create the natural production of vitamin D, and they'll shift your body pH. And they work very closely with infrared, which is the next spectrum over. And that's because if you overdo it with UV light, as people might be worried about, in nature, if you overdo it in UV, then infrared comes in and basically heals any of the damage that might have been done from overexposure. So there is quite a balance in nature, as most people perceive anyway, but they don't quite interpret it in terms of light frequencies, how there could be a balance there. Okay, so we harness these full spectrum infrared frequencies, and we put them in 2 main devices: infrared sauna, or infrared, what we call a healing pad, which it's like a heating pad with the same wavelengths. And the difference is you're in sauna and you're bathing in frequencies. With a healing pad, you're bringing it right to an area where you're looking to give a little bit more healing or love. And so the frequencies, based on the concentration and the focus, like a laser focus, maybe it could be considered like, in the sauna, you're in a floodlight, and with the healing pad, it's more like a spotlight. So now I can focus on a joint or a muscle group or rehabbing or detoxing an organ. That's where we use that. So many of our devices are built around that. And then we dive into what other things can we do in that sauna? What other kinds of wavelengths can we bring in? And again, this didn't happen overnight. We started with a core infrared full spectrum. And now for people that are out there that are viewing, there is quite a rage, or I can't say a controversy. It's more like a contrast. There's the far infrared frequency saunas, and then there's the near infrared frequency. Very few sit in my position, which is the full spectrum. And that's all three wavelengths. And that's the way that the sun or nature delivers it to the earth, which is the way for hundreds of thousands of years, all of nature responded. And so we don't separate, we don't compartmentalize. We just feel that nature's got a playbook. Everybody on the planet can benefit from all three wavelengths. And generally, the ones that you need the most is because of certain body deficiencies. And when you offer the body the full array, it grabs what it needs, and whatever it doesn't need, it just lets go. So it really was quite a journey getting introduced to this and finding myself in a position where I could recruit a lot of my skill sets to develop devices and then educate and bring them to the general population for them to use.
I think now people are starting to kind of get a little more educated with the near versus far, because you're right. Like you're like, well, what do I need? What's the difference? And they really do two different things. So you do need both of them. And yeah, if you go out into the sun every day, you're going to get that spectrum. What I really love about red light is it does mimic this time of the day when the sun's like going down, and those near infrared rays, or that spectrum is dominant, but you only get it for such a short amount of time. And most people don't think like, oh, hey, this is a good time to go out and get, take my shirt off because it's the sun's going down or the sun's coming up. But it does have such healing properties that it's like, you can just do that. I like to do it at that time. So about like 5-6 o'clock at night, I like to get that red light. But it is also funny how people respond so differently to it. Like I know people who do the red light stuff like right before they go to bed. And I've tried that, and it stimulates me so much that I can't fall asleep. But for some people, it's like, oh, that's my jam. That's like the best way, it primes me to go to bed. And I think that just speaks to this world of holistic health in general, which is it's the only health modality that takes into consideration your own bio-individuality, which is not how most doctors operate. And it's probably the most beneficial of all the ways to look at health.
Yeah, actually, I'll tell you why you have trouble sleeping when you do it before bed, because you're very clean. I'm saying that kind of in a funny way. You're not very toxic. That's a better way to say it.
Interesting.
And when you do use infrared sauna or infrared technology to stimulate detoxing, the less toxic you are in the beginning through the detox phase, the same sauna session might make you feel tired, lethargic, might make you feel lightheaded or dizzy. These are all detox responses. The less toxic you get, that same session, same time, same amount of temperature is now going to energize you. And so what we do is we try again, mimic nature. I made a 14-page best practice optimization guide. So when you buy our devices, you get that for free. And, for any of your viewers, if they have saunas and they're not ours, that's fine. We just want to promote that as a general health and as a gift to you. If you'd like for us to give any of your viewers our reference guide, we're happy to donate that. But it speaks to doing it the early part of the day. And if we dial back our own civilization's world history now, 8,000 years, we woke up, we lived on the land, we lived in caves, we lived in tents, we were nomads. We woke up to sunlight, to the rays and the frequencies of sunlight, not just waking up our consciousness and shifting the hormones that come from the pineal gland, which is light sensitive. But it does stimulate and jumpstart many of our body systems. Our gut, our metabolism, our vascular system. The warmth of the sun warms up our structural system, all the connective tissues and so forth. So all of this stuff is connected. And so when we talk about optimal time to do sauna, we say earliest part of your day when you wake up. And then if you're through a detox mode, you get the benefit of all the great things that infrared sauna does to really work into your daily schedule all throughout the day. And as opposed to doing it before bed, and then you're getting your detox, but you don't get your body to utilize a lot of the other body systems through the day because, of course, you're laying down to rest. Now, that being said, even though I say that the optimal time to do it is the morning, frankly, if you just give me once a day, I'll go with it. And, we have many people. Like last week, I had a truck driver that called up and he said, Robbie, I want to be able to do it first thing, but I get up at 4 to drive a truck and I'm not getting up at 3 to do my sauna. And so we just work a manicured profile that works within his own lifestyle and the things that he needs to do. And we find that to be really effective because the worst thing I could ever do is deprive someone, like when you go on a diet and you deprive yourself of things, and then that starts to eat away at your brain, and then all of a sudden you go off your diet, and then you can't wait to binge on those things that you didn't do, and it's a zero-sum game, in terms of your dietary approach at some point. For me, I would rather have a few minutes with you, find out what it is that is your lifestyle, what your goals are, whether it be health challenges or just optimal health or whatever that is, and then develop a manicured plan that works for you. So we start off with a low and slow approach, and then we kind of dive into the deeper end of the pool, as people feel more comfortable, as their bodies are responding, as they become to understand how they can use infrared sauna as a linchpin or one of the tools in their tool shed to maintain optimal health.
Are there any contraindications with red light? Like, for instance, like pregnancy? Is it safe for pregnant women to use red light? Are there any like physical things, skin things that you shouldn't use red light with? Because I haven't heard any, but I'm curious if you know of any.
Well, it's great because I keep searching for ones. So it's a good question. There are things to be mindful of. Like even in our user guide, we say, if you're pregnant, don't use the sauna, not because there's health science that supports that. Although it makes common sense to me that if I were in my last trimester carrying a child, I wouldn't put an infrared healing pad right on my belly where the baby is. Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me, or maybe better served, it would make common sense not to do that. As a device developer, and a manufacturer, we put the warning in because God forbid, we'd hate to have someone have a challenge with their pregnancy and feel part in any way responsible. Our devices are listed as FDA class 1 and 2 medical devices. And so we've gone through a lot of the, pretty rigorous credentialing to test the power from United Laboratories and the materials that we use so they're non-toxic. So we're guided, and a lot of our information and language that we put in our user guide is guided by FDA language. So it's a good question. I've been searching for contraindicators. One that comes up is if I have high or low blood pressure, how would the sauna help me or affect me, or do I have to worry? And there, simply put, the sauna creates what's called a bioresonance. It's a frequency that penetrates seamlessly into the body, harbors into your muscles and organs. Those areas are very vascular. The vibration liberates the heat. The heat warms up those vessels. The vessels dilate. And so one of the first physiological attributes is faster metabolism. And as you know, being a nutritionist and supplement expert, I can say that. I feel good about saying that, Eric.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Okay. So you know that if there's a way that someone could improve their circulation, improve the amount of exposure to your tissues of things that are in your blood, because your blood carries nutrition and it carries healing properties, DNA and RNA, and it also carries oxygen. And so in that nutritional piece is everything you're eating and has been digested and all your supplementation, right? And so if I can move more blood around your body and give more exposure to your tissues, then I'm going to elevate the absorption or potentiating of that nutrition into your cells, ultimately into your cells. And so infrared sauna is amazing on nutrition. And we work with one of the top IV specialists. He actually wrote the book for the medical schools on how to do IV therapy. He's here in Boca and he's a personal friend of mine, and he has all of our equipment there. And we use infrared to actually restructure the water in the IV cocktails that he puts together, so that the absorption level, and he says it's somewhere around 30%. I mean, he's the expert, and he's telling me that since I've been using infrared, the absorption and the potentiating of his IVs is close to 30% greater than in his entire career. So that's how, it's not my infrared. I'm harnessing sunlight. This is a story about nature. And so what I'm describing today is how powerful nature is in helping us heal our bodies. We're always looking for very complicated answers to a complex, health challenge. But generally, you have to start off on the primal level. And oftentimes, if you can build that primal foundation, then the complexities start to peel away, and all of a sudden, many of the symptoms start to go away.
That nutritional aspect is such an important, keystone of the success of red light, which you're the first person I've had several red light conversations. You're actually the first person I've heard that bit of information from. And I think that's so cool because, at the end of the day, you're not what you eat, you're what you absorb. And the thing is, most people, I don't like to generalize like that, but I feel kind of safe in saying it. Like, most people aren't absorbing the good food that they eat. Again, going back to a number of reasons, metabolism right at the top of those reasons. And especially in the supplement industry, like I say this all the time, the supplement industry didn't become $100 billion industry just because all of these supplements are working for everybody all the time. It's a $100 billion industry because, well, A, there's a lot of bad products out there, but B, most people, a lot of people using these products are just not absorbing them. Like you said yourself, like you're not good with, capsules. I think a lot of people aren't good with capsules. I think a lot of people miss, the boat with powders and droplets, and now we got liposomal stuff. Like, I just don't think people are getting the full benefits of what they're taking. So, especially on this channel, I know there's a lot of people who take supplements and are looking for supplements. If you want those supplements to work, like Robbie just said it, they've got case studies of evidence that show you something as simple as the frequency of light hitting your body, helping you better absorb the nutrition you're spending so much money on in the first place. Like, why wouldn't you want that in your life?
Wow, that's so powerful what you just said. And we do certain protocols. One of my favorite ones is, it's actually, the phrase was developed by a guy named Chris Shade, who's a compounder with a company called Quicksilver. Yep. And Chris coined this phrase, he calls it pull catch. So the sauna frequencies mobilize all the toxins in your body, and that means they pull them out of wherever they're stored, your muscle tissue, your organ tissues, and so forth, and even on a cell level. And then the catch is the binder. And so you have a binder that sits in your bloodstream. And so when, waiting to catch the toxin and bind it up so that it takes a little bit of the workload off of your filtering organs, like your pancreas, liver, kidneys, large intestine. And so for compromised individuals, when we use the binders along with infrared, it really jumpstarts their bodies and opens up their detox pathways. For people that are optimal health, a binder, I think, is one that is essential, particularly in our very toxic environment with heavy metals running around, with the amount of glyphosate that's been dumped into our atmosphere and into our soil, is appearing in our air, water, and our food sources now. and it causes havoc. I mean, everything that leaks in your body, you can dial back to glyphosate. So we've got leaky gut, leaky brain, leaky throat, leaky heart. I mean, we're freaking leaking, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means to people that are dialing in today is that fluids and bacteria that are very, very important for our general overall health. We've got 60,000 different bacteria in our GI tract alone. So we're eating food. It belongs encased in a system, our GI tract, gastrointestinal tract. And these organisms have been living symbiotically. They've been living in harmony for hundreds of thousands of years inside of us. That's our microbiome. And so when your gut starts to leak, those bacteria go from where they're encased inside your GI tract to now seeping into your bloodstream. And the foods that are either digested or partially digested are leaking out into our bloodstreams, which our body on that side starts attacking it because it thinks it's a foreign invader. And so now our inflammatory response is like way high, all because of this horrible chemical. And so detoxing and using binders has become as important to me to be done on a daily basis, either with sauna, using binders and the foods that I eat, as anything that I do to maintain optimal health and certainly to keep my immune system strong.
Oh man, I love geeking out on this, like the pole catch. I've heard of this too. I follow Chris Shade's work. It's so interesting. I think he even has like a whole all-inclusive like package of like detox binding with instructions on how to do it.
He calls it a detox box or something like that, I think. Yeah. It's pretty cool. And he's super cool. It does great work. But there is other binders we use, and this was to an earlier point that you made. One of the things that's a challenge for us that we look at, and you hit on it a little bit about body battery. Our body batteries, our actual bodies, have an electrical system that really drives our neurological system, right? And because we're not grounded these days, and the environments we live in, like I'm in South Florida, so I go from my air-conditioned home to my air-conditioned car to my air-conditioned laboratory, and so air handlers, fluorescent lights, all these different things that we have modernized into our lives, they put out a positive charged particle called a cation, which, because that's our environment, it now influences our body battery or body charge. So most of us are walking around a little bit more positive charge. In order for our neurological system to operate, to fire, for the neurons to actually spark and carry that information efficiently, our battery is supposed to be balanced. The same amount of negative charge, the same amount of positive charge. So what's missing is the earth charge, the negative charge. And so I'm really drawn towards supplements that actually have charged particles to them. So we use a binder that has a charged carbon particle that's activated by sunlight. Guess what frequency? The infrared's frequency. So when you take that binder, it just is the most efficient one on the planet that I've found that can actually help bind up all this garbage and get it out. And that's microtoxins from mold, and it's heavy metals, and it's biofilms, all the way up to, there's various different versions of the theme, but you get where I'm going. Just by finding, and it's not expensive, just by finding that little coin of understanding, if you just stack a binder with your detox, you're going to optimize that experience, your detox experience. Wow. It's really important.
Yeah. And I also think another thing that's missing from people's protocol that doesn't get talked a lot about is bile. When a lot of people are not getting bile out of their gallbladder, which is why gallbladder removal surgery is like one of the top 2 or 3 outpatient surgeries in the country. It has been for years, because doctors just tell patients like, oh, hey, you don't need it, but you do, because it's like your body's own natural like gut cleaner. It's like if you had, what's that stuff you flush down a drain? If you had like a Drano, you could put down your GI tract. I mean, that's basically bile. And most people, it's, you know, when we're talking about detoxing, it's like, well, these toxins go to your liver, the liver packages as a bile. And then I think that's the whole point of like the binder pull catch mechanism, which is like, okay, your bile is going to go through. It's like you're planning like this little attack, right? It's like, okay, first we're going to stimulate the detox. Then we're going to get the liver cranking the bile. Then we'll get the bile out. Then we're going to catch it with these binders. And you're right. When you get the thing harmoniously working, you're not going to feel it immediately, but you might wake up a morning or two later and you're like, holy crap. Like I just got shot out of a cannon. I feel amazing because you're just getting all of that, that glyphosate, those GMOs, the freaking mold. Like I cannot believe just the scourge that mold is. And it's just omnipresent. It's everywhere. Go outside, breathe in those chemicals, drink the water, sip the chemicals in the food. Like having a robust thing. And then you add the infrared in there with the mitochondria cranking and it's just pushing out all that stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but you can really make it simple for yourself. And it sounds like that's what you're doing.
Yeah, we try to do that. As a device developer, we work with pretty sophisticated concepts, but in our delivery system to the end user, to the general public, you plug it in, you turn it on, you hit a button, and you fly the plane. It's that simple.
And so can you tell me a little bit about your mats? Because are those like grounding? I've heard of grounding mats. And I know you have some of those. I don't know if they're grounding mats, but like, are your mats using that kind of wave or how are those working?
Yeah. We electrically ground, which I think is what you're alluding to, just by picking up the grounding plug in your electrical circuitry in your home or your office building. So when you plug it in, if that socket is grounding, we're going to draw that same earth charge, because grounding technology is really sticking a wire, or ultimately a wire is going into the ground, bringing the negative charge of the earth through that wire, through your electricity into your body to balance out that body battery, like I mentioned. That's really the end game from an energetic point of view, is to try to get that balanced. And because most of us don't kick our shoes off, go out and hug an oak tree or a palm tree, anything grounded into the earth. We're not walking on the beaches and, walking on the lawns. I mean, now we are, because it's, summertime throughout the US, but during winter, what do we do? What do we do for all this stuff? And as a company, earlier you said something that really struck a nerve for me, because if you're in the sun at the right time of day, then you get what you need. Well, think about that. Whose schedules can actually complement that? And so in part of our thinking here at Therasage, we develop devices so that you don't have to worry about, you get all the benefit, you get it in a compact format, because in order for you to get the same frequencies that we put in our portable sauna in your body, if you're out in natural sunlight, you have to be out for hours and hours on end at the right time of day. And with our devices, you just turn it on any time of day that serves your lifestyle, and you get all those health benefits. That's a big deal. We've also developed a integrated approach to our devices, so that basically we were plagued, like mostly all of our competitors have this challenge, which is that, before, let's say, for instance, you're living on an island somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic or the middle of the Pacific Ocean in Bali. We have a friend that's in Bali right now, so it's on my mind. And she has a health challenge, and she's depending on that sauna to maintain her health and try to improve her health every day. All of a sudden, there's a power surge. One of the parts breaks. In the past, she'd have to package the sauna up. It would take a week to get to me. It would be in engineering for a week to repair, and then it would be a week to get back. That's 3 weeks out of that person's life. And if they're chronic, 3 weeks could be an eternity if you're depending on something as your lifeline in a way. And so now everything we make, our devices are plug and play. And on a simple phone call, in about 2 minutes, we can figure out what part you need, overnight that to you, and basically you'd be out of pocket a day, 2 days, in Bali, maybe 4 days. That's much different than 3 weeks to 4 weeks of time frame. So we try to work really hard to not only make it simple, but also use all of the modern sciences, physics and electrical sciences to really deliver what we think is the best format and platform around.
Yeah, that's great. Like I think about when I lived in New York, and I was living in this apartment in Queens, and it was just like, man, and you're surrounded by artificial light, by concrete. There were trees, but they were surrounded by concrete. So it was like, man, I was just so disconnected. And it didn't hit me until I moved to Puerto Rico, how just disconnected from nature I was. And just the lifeline you feel like you get when you have nature back in your life. And I get it. Like, hey, if you got to live in a city, you got to live in a city, but tools like you're creating and putting out there on the market, this will give you as much of that contact to nature as you can get without, taking a week out of your life and going and getting barefoot and walking through the woods or walking on a beach. So yeah, hats off to you, my friend. Yeah,
exactly. That's one of our goals. The other way that we create negative ions and we bring that into your body is through another life experience. I've been fortunate. I've traveled around the world. One of my passions is when I make a discovery is to try to find the best of the sourcing of those elements and integrate that into our format or our platform. And so I started doing research on longevity, and I started to research the areas of the world that are centurion or blue zones, where people live on an average to greater than 100 years of age. Why is it? What's so special about those areas of the world that people live that long? Everybody wants to do that. How do we bring that to the US, to our lives and so forth. And so I met a group. I started doing research with them. They were over in Asia. I spent, it was a 17-hour bus ride. I probably still hold the trophy for being the only Caucasian male that ever traveled to this area of the world, in a journey with 40 other scientists to actually investigate did two of the blue zones. And what I discovered in my own way was that there was the village that I was at, which was putting out 20,000 times on my meter. That I brought some equipment with me, and the meter I brought to measure the ion charge of the air was digital. And when I turned it on, when I got to the epicenter of the village, the digital counter kept on going. I thought it was going to break, Eric. It just kept on reading out and reading. I go, when is this going to stop? And it really was the highest amount of negative ions that I had experienced, particularly because generally in nature, negative ions happen when there's friction in a water molecule. And so or an air molecule. So what happens is, in a water molecule. So when the water comes through the atmosphere, or a wave hits the shore, or water moves down the river and moves over land, or like a waterfall, for instance, the friction of that water moving over land or through the atmosphere frees up an electron. And that's why often after a heavy rain, if you don't see thunder and lightning, of course, the air feels really heavy and almost electrified. That is the negative ion content. And that's why we feel so kind of warm and fuzzy and euphoric when we walk along the beach, is because our bodies are absorbing like a sponge those negative ions. And it's balancing our battery out, which creates a sense of well-being and mostly better cell communication, because now the batteries, each cell's a little battery, and each of those batteries are in sync and their positive charges are neutralized. So let me ask you a personal question, Eric. Do you sing in the shower?
I sing in the shower, in my living room, making a sandwich. You can't stop. In my car. Of course.
Okay. Well, not very many people do. And I'll tell you the physiological reason why you sing in the shower, because when that water is coming through the shower head, the friction is actually releasing negative ions. And when you're in that shower, and it's a small shower chamber, it's just an abundance of negative ions. Your body's absorbing them like a sponge, and they just can change your mood. They can turn you, make a happy person even happier. Again, sense of well-being, sense of euphoria. Generally, when you're happy, you start singing. And so that's besides getting happy because you're getting clean,
Sure.
You're getting happy because you're getting balance from an energetic point of view.
Oh, that is so cool. Yeah. Like just the way you put it, where it's like these negative ions are created because of friction of the water, yeah, you're right. Like all of these different things, like, now is that the same for like, if you go to the woods and you just take your shoes off and you're walking through
Totally. And the forest air is another technology that we've developed too. It's called singlet oxygen energy. It's energizing air with sunlight, and you breathe in it. And so that's amazing technology too. But this negative ion piece is not small by any means, because the imbalance of your body charge is another stressor on you that suppresses your immune system. So you add up all these things. It also neutralizes the negative effects of electromagnetic fields, EMF. And so that's why people use grounding mats or grounding technology to try to remediate the absorption of these exogenous frequencies in the body, and what it does to sort of set your body charge, off balance. And so we electrically ground, and then we use this natural tourmaline, which was the answer. When I studied these blue zones, I found that this one village was on a mountain of tourmaline. And so this tourmaline generates negative ions in abundance, and we incorporate that special tourmaline from this special blue zone in all of our saunas.
Is that the Thera Protect class of products that you have?
No, it's a little different. This is actually the gemstones. When we talk about in our writing about gemstone technology, we incorporate jade stone, rose granite is another big one that we use. That's an energetic stone, and we use this natural tourmaline. And in some cases, like the sauna, if you actually touch the panels, you'll feel the stones. We have 18 stones that are peppered in special pockets right on the panels, generating. But also in the materials, we grind up our gemstones into a very fine micro powder, and we actually impregnate or infuse that into the materials. And so you're not just getting infrared, you're getting all these earth frequencies, again, to promote primal healing when you're in the sauna. And oftentimes, as a protocol I do, after I'm done with my sauna session and it turns off, I just sit in the sauna for another 5 to 8 minutes, allowing my body to continue to absorb these other frequencies that we put in the sauna, along with the infrared, just to allow that all to mix and sort of percolate in a way.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
I'm looking at your, this is your Thersage portable sauna. You have all this stuff in. That's so cool. Yeah. I highly recommend anybody listening or watching, go on over to Therasage.com and check out some of these products. Because when you first look at like this sauna, for instance, you're going to look like R2D2, that's fine. You're in your home. Nobody's watching you. Nobody's, making an Instagram video. You can make an Instagram video yourself. It's probably fine. But man, when you see what this thing is loaded with, the negative ion biotech, the gemstone technology, the infrared, you're not going to find that anywhere else. I mean, even at an expensive spa, that's a pretty cool combination. You can do it right from your home. That's huge.
Yeah. Now the EMF remediation was really, there's 3 ways to block or to remediate EMF. There's blocking and shielding, which a lot of technology is pretty good at, and we've been doing that for more than 17 years. I had this little dream, and the dream was that the body is conflicted when it gets man-made frequencies like cell phones, Bluetooth devices, all that wireless stuff, even RF signals from like 22.4 gigahertz portable wireless phones, all that stuff. Those frequencies oscillate about 80 times higher than the body frequencies. So when we're immersed in those exogenous man-made frequencies, it pulls our body rhythm out, our energetic rhythm out. This is different than the charge. Earlier, we talked about negative and positive charges. This is more about your body frequency, which is your life force. These are, again, all stressors. So I was always troubled with shielding and blocking, but it was really the only technology that was available at even for just till recently, frankly. And the reason why I was troubled is because basically, let's say the technology is 3G wireless network that's out there, and I shield and block effectively with my techniques to block for 3G. As soon as I get that integrated and I get it dispensed out to the public, they dial up to 4G. Then they dial up to 5G like we're at now. And the governments are using 7 and 10G now for the military. So there's a lot of these frequencies around us. And if it was just one thing, like a hotspot in Starbucks that we would be all immersed in, then we'd be okay. But these frequencies we're talking about are all around us. You can dial in. There's a certain website link that you can actually put in your zip code and see how many cell towers are within 4 miles of your home. When I walk outside and I look outside, I can see my eye shot, maybe 3 or 4 cell towers. When I put in my zip code, there's 43 cell towers within 4 miles. 43. I mean,
that's insane.
So we can't get away from this. This is just the beginning of all of it, And so it troubled me that the technology that was existing at the time, this is again 15 to 17 years ago, was just shielding and blocking, but I knew that was reactive. I said, so for the longest time, I'm thinking, what can I do that would be proactive? And that's really the latest stuff that we're doing. It's what I call my latest opus. There's 2. One is reflexology. So we added a reflexology module to our concept. The concept simply was the saunas, the wagon wheel, and the spokes would be different modalities we plug in. So reflexology, aromatherapy, guided meditation, ozone therapy. These are all things that you can bring into the sauna tent to, again, enhance your whole wellness profile. But on the EMF, the most advanced is what we're calling imprinting frequencies on various different formats. Like we're using carbon fiber and we're using special holograms that can hold effectively as many frequencies as we infuse, but we're using somewhere between 100 and 200 different frequencies. And then we mount them into this format or this platform, and we stick it on our phone, we stick it on the sauna, we stick it on our wireless network. And what that's doing is creating a alternating frequency that's earth frequency. It's another form of grounding now that I think about it, because it uses Schumann frequencies and esophageal frequencies is what we're imprinting. And so what that does basically, Eric, is it builds your body shield. It makes us all like Captain America. We've got this shield now. And if you use the harmonization technology, of course, shielding and blocking is important too, because that lowers radiation. But if you use harmonization now, building your field, and so that no matter whether you're in 5G, 10G, a room full of computers, it won't matter, because your field is so strong that it's not going to allow these frequencies to suppress it, become another stressor, again, wear down and potentially affect your immune system.
Wow, man, that is just so interesting. Like this thing just goes to so many layers that it's so cool to talk to you and know that like you're on the forefront of this, like you're one of these people who are thinking ahead. You're not being reactive. Like you just said, it's like you're being very proactive. I mean, look, when else in history have we lived with this many wires and this many antennas and this many signals just crisscrossing us all the time? And look, there's a million things, there's a million parameters you could look at and correlate them to chronic disease, mental health issues, this, that, and the other. But to say that, well, being surrounded, I mean, I'm looking out my window right there and I have just giant 5G towers. I'm surrounded by them. To think that the Wi-Fi in my home that's probably passing through my body and these lights that are, to think that it's not having any effect on you, especially at the cellular level, it's just ludicrous. And it's good to know that there's people like yourself that are out there that are saying, I recognize it, I'm getting out in front of it, and I'm providing solutions for people. I think that's real cool.
Great. Thank you. To your point about, you focus on cognitive, and how do you think that your brain, I'll just get just an observation. 15 or 20 years ago, in my travels, traveling a lot, I would go to the airport. I like watching people. I'm a people watcher. And I noticed, there's these two kids in the stroller, the nanny or au pair is pushing the stroller. The family's going on vacation, so they have brought help with, could be a relative. And then there's the mother and the father, and they're all venturing, to get on the plane early because they need more time. And I watched that. And then as things progressed, the nannies went away and the little toddlers, 1-year-olds, they're holding tablets. Okay. And that's their amusement. That's their nanny, And so as enamored as I am that a child can learn that kind of the way to negotiate around a device at that age is so amazing to me. What I'm fearful of is what people should know is that really between 0 and 20, our brains aren't, the neural pathways of our brains, the network, the connecting of the dots hasn't happened. And so the idea of the concentration of these exogenous frequencies that we can't see, smell, hear, or taste, so it's hard for us to react to them, how that could affect a toddler or an infant. The mother can't wait to deliver. She does. Everything's successful. Wow, that's a miracle within itself. And the first thing they do is they get a baby monitor. That baby monitor uses these frequencies because it's wireless. The family has a little bit of freedom and they can watch the baby, but you've got a child that's days old that has these frequencies filling their bedroom. Yeah. Nowhere to escape. Really designed to kind of absorb into anything living in the room, which is the baby. And I think, there's a lot of reasons why we see the autism rates go up, and also the challenges with ADHD and ADD and all those various different emotionally related or psychologically related challenges these days, but I do think that the dialing up of the 5Gs and the wireless concentrations and the wireless towers and the lack of remediation on these manners, is part of the contribution of why we're seeing these trends in such an enormous way.
I believe it. I believe it. When COVID hit and people were talking about 5G, I didn't jump on board with that. I thought that was a little maniacal in some ways, but I think the disservice that it did was it kind of trivialized, really looking at the impact of EMFs and energy, because it's a real thing. It's like you said, the science is there. I've read it. I'm convinced. I don't know what it's doing. I don't know how much it does contribute to chronic disease, but again, to think like these wavelengths, like magnets, we're not impacted by just the sheer energy around us. I think that's ludicrous. And as time goes on and we just keep ramping up this technology, and it's exciting, but at the same time, we have to have solutions that balance the whole thing out. So. Right.
Exactly. And so, what I'm trying to do with our concept here, and just take the sauna, for instance, that's your safe house. When you're in that sauna, it's pulling EMF out of you and all these bad frequencies. It's shielding you from any of the exogenous frequencies that may be in your direct environment. And at the same time, it's bringing in the way the sun and nature delivers to the body full spectrum frequencies to initiate, again, stacking using different things like binders and different other things like aromatherapy or guided meditation or ozone therapy. We bring all that together to try to give people an opportunity to really take care of themselves.
I love it.
And Eric, this isn't instead of your primary health practitioner by any means, but these are home solutions that are affordable. And it's not about, what's the term? I guess it's like health defensive, working a good defense in doing natural healing benefits to try to maintain your health, so you don't need it's about that, but it's taking control of your own healthcare in many ways, and that's going to make the time with your practitioner a lot more useful. Whatever protocols you're on with them, it'll make them more beneficial. I mean, the best thing that we do is to work with practitioners to show people how to use our devices to improve the effectiveness of whatever protocols you're doing.
Absolutely.
And so it's not instead of anything. It's just to create a much better platform in order for all your systems to be working so that all these medications and all these supplements, I mean, you said it, I talk about pill fatigue. That's why I look at different other formats besides just taking pills for supplements. But what about all the money that's wasted on supplements? And we buy, and some of them are super expensive because we don't get the proper absorption because all of our other systems in our body aren't primed yet. And so it's sort of a catch-22. But I do believe that infrared sauna and harnessing infrared light and or light therapy, red light therapy, so forth is a great, ways to help everybody help themselves.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great place to wrap this up on. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about feeling good. And if you know you're feeling good, you're feeling good. You don't need a clinical study or whatever, even though there's plenty of that out there. What you need are just the right stacks, the right procedures, the right tools to get you there. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. So if people wanted to learn more about you and about Therasage, what's the best place? What's the best route to send viewers to?
Well, probably Thersage, THERASAGE.com. We also have a pretty active, and I'm actually so humbled by it, our Instagram live and Instagram TV Instagram channel. There's so many great contributions, Eric, that people are doing that I'm just so humbled by because they're using our devices. They're trying to get the word out. They're having fun in the process. And it's just such a joy for me that's really what we were looking for, is a sense of community, people sharing this information, sharing their experiences. So I love, big shout out to IG for the format. We also just started doing TikToks, which is kind of fun too, because they're just 1 to 3 minute little exposés, and it's ways to get sound bites and visual bites of information out that, again, to elevate. And so we have a TikTok channel. We've got an Instagram channel. We launched actually months before May was our targeted date, but month is Lyme Awareness Month. And so we launched a YouTube channel, which is a visual channel that's called the Healthy Hotline. And there, in the month of May, which is Lyme Awareness, I interviewed 33 different practitioners. We released one of the interviews. They're 30 to 40 minutes. It was about Lyme disease, but I asked all those guys the same thing: what would be some helpful tips to help people out there? And so it started off about Lyme, but it's really about life. So all of you out there, take a look at our Healthy Hotline, subscribe. We're trying to add 3 to 5 new content a week. And I'm really, really driven by that format because it's visual, it's auditory. There's lots of different white papers and PDFs that you guys can grab from the research that we're doing. And again, it's just, trying to raise awareness so that people can make informed choices and do the things that are best for them to maintain optimal health.
Wow. And I will link to all that in our show notes when we release this. I'll have links I'll send to you and to everybody. So anybody watching this who wants to, I love just signing up for everybody on Instagram. So definitely we'll make sure that people know how to find you on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and
Sure.
Of course, your website that people can
go.
Yeah,
we're also on Facebook too. I shouldn't leave that out. People can find us there.
Perfect. We'll have links to all that, and you'll be very easily searchable through this podcast.
Thank you.
Well, Robbie Besner, thank you so much for joining me. Again, viewers, if you enjoyed this, make sure you pick up your free ticket to go watch Robbie speak at the Biohacking Congress. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing speech. Just getting what we got out of this interview today, I think this was just the tip of the iceberg for what you're going to get at that conference. Otherwise, if you enjoy the podcast, remember to subscribe, like the video, follow Robbie on all those socials, and like always, we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Peace.
Thank you for having us. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for listening. For more brain-boosting info, in-depth articles, and show notes, check out holisticnootropics.com.